did you go?
Get out!
Why do you find my being here so threatening?
I don't find you threatening. Should I find you threatening?
Photographer Henry Tyson hears distant screams and rushes to find a bear attacking a man. He fires his gun to help, but due to his shaky hands, accidentally shoots the man instead. Sheriff Dan Anderson arrives, takes control, and sends Henry home. 3 months later, children Liam Sutter and Carrie Morgan stumble upon a frozen mammoth. Carrie pulls a tooth from its mouth, and they leave. Soon after, Liam collapses into a deep sleep, worrying his parents, Frank and Jules Sutter. Meanwhile, Sheriff Anderson and his team return from a rescue mission, and Henry receives a mysterious letter. Scientist Vincent Rattray arrives in Fortitude, where Professor Charles Stoddart welcomes him. They discuss unusual animal behavior, including polar bears turning cannibalistic. Stoddart invites Vincent and his colleague Natalie Yelburton to dinner, mentioning his nearly completed report on a proposed tourism project. At the hospital, Dr. Margaret Allardyce examines Liam, suspecting mumps, but warning of possible polio, which could force a town-wide quarantine. Meanwhile, Ronnie Morgan and Jason Donnelly also find the mammoth. Ronnie suggests selling it for profit before the local mines shut down. Governor Hildur Odegaard discusses plans for an ice hotel with Anderson and urges him to reconcile with Henry, who is terminally ill. Elena Ledesma warns Frank that the town hides dark secrets. Anderson confronts hunters, Yuri Lubomov and Max Cordero for not carrying rifles, confiscating their snowmobile keys and Yuri's gun. At the pub, Natalie tells Vincent that Fortitude has no crime, making it hard to judge Anderson's effectiveness as sheriff. A drunk Henry confronts Anderson, accusing him of covering up a past death. Meanwhile, Jason offers Professor Stoddart the mammoth tooth for money, but Stoddart insists the discovery must be preserved. Jules doubts Dr. Allardyce's diagnosis and demands Liam be taken to a mainland hospital, arguing with Frank. That night, Vincent admires the northern lights, Elena visits Frank, and they sleep together. At home, Liam suddenly wakes, climbs out his window, and wanders barefoot into the snow. When Frank returns, his clothes are bloodied and he hides his shirt. Jules finds Liam awake but soon screaming, his feet black from frostbite. At the hospital, doctors warn that amputation might be needed, sparking another fight between Frank and Jules. Meanwhile, Vincent arrives at Stoddart's house and finds him murdered. Attacked by Stoddart's dog, he is rescued by Anderson, who shoots the dog and arrests Vincent for murder. During Governor Odegaard's speech on Fortitude's safety, Anderson and his team rush to investigate Stoddart's murder. A bear warning is issued, and Petra Ingrid is ordered to track it down. Vincent, arrested, doubts a bear is responsible. Meanwhile, Henry, battling cancer, burns a letter in despair. At the hospital, Dr. Allardyce suggests a risky hyperbaric treatment for Liam. When the bear alarm sounds, young Carrie reassures her pet rabbit that it would be attacked first. Meanwhile, Odegaard and Dr. Allardyce arrive at the crime scene, where Anderson questions the bear attack theory. Allardyce realizes Stoddart is still alive, but he dies on the way to the hospital. Henry contacts a detective, accusing Anderson of covering up deaths under Odegaard's orders. Vincent, locked in his cell, reveals that Natalie was supposed to meet Stoddart the night he died. Anderson sends Petra to find her. At a store, Carrie meets Shirley Allardyce, who warns her about the bear. Odegaard informs Anderson that Stoddart didn't survive surgery. Petra sneaks into Natalie's house, discovering she left on her snowmobile. Meanwhile, Jules hears strange noises and stumbles upon a disturbing experiment involving a pig. On a plane, Patricia Stoddart and Eugene Morton discuss Fortitude. Upon arrival, Morton questions Anderson's authority and examines Stoddart's house, noting the presence of wind chimes. During the autopsy, Morton identifies 3 different blades used in the attack, suggesting a ritualistic murder. Anderson arrives with a potato peeler, demanding Morton leave. Petra suggests Stoddart's injuries may have made him appear dead earlier. Meanwhile, Hildur visits her hospitalized husband, Eric, who claims to know the killer. In a remote cabin, Natalie finds a mammoth tooth while searching for Jason Donnelly's cigarettes. Elsewhere, Ronnie Morgan sees a police car and panics, convinced Jason is the killer. Meanwhile, a strange crackling sound comes from the frozen mammoth in a warehouse, while Ronnie watches a video of a woman singing. Anderson and Petra visit Celia's house, questioning Jason's whereabouts. Celia claims he's helping Natalie. In Stoddart's office, Anderson and Vincent find a photo of a dead deer, geotagged by Natalie. They realize Natalie and Jason are hiding at a research cabin. On their way, they encounter Morton, who secretly gives Vincent a number for help. Ronnie takes Carrie and her rabbit onto a boat, refusing to reveal their destination. He cryptically mentions Jason getting them into trouble. Back in town, Anderson orders Petra to shoot Jason if necessary, and tells Eric to keep Morton out of the investigation. At the bar, Morton learns only Henry uses the payphone. Vincent secretly calls Morton, revealing Anderson was already inside Stoddart's house when he found the body. Hildur visits Henry, questioning him about Stoddart's opposition to the Glacier Hotel. She warns him that disease never dies in permafrost, and suggests he will die alone if he doesn't cooperate. Anderson and his team track Jason and Natalie to a remote cabin. To flush them out, they sabotage the generator. Meanwhile, Morton and Petra study the crime scene, realizing Stoddart's killer stayed much longer than expected. The police arrest Jason and Natalie, shocking both. Hildur interrogates Jason, who denies involvement in Stoddart's murder. He admits to trying to sell a mammoth tooth, now claiming it belonged to an elephant. Petra releases Vincent, who considers returning to England. Frank confesses his guilt over Liam's condition to Elena, and they share a kiss. Later, Morton offers to buy Anderson a drink, noting his isolated lifestyle. They toast to his health. Detective Morton searches Professor Stoddart's house and finds an old photo of Stoddart and Patricia, along with a geological report by Billy Pettigrew. Unbeknownst to him, Yuri is watching from a distance. Meanwhile, Anderson responds to an emergency call at Tavrani's shop, where he finds Henry Tyson holding a rifle, demanding to be shot. Anderson takes the weapon and brings Henry home. There, Henry confesses that he drinks to forget killing Billy Pettigrew, but Anderson insists Billy's death was his responsibility. Meanwhile, Morton contacts a colleague about Pettigrew's report, and Anderson and Petra find Kieran Donnelly beaten and tied up in his shop. Kieran claims Ronnie attacked him after he refused to provide a boat. At the research center, Jules panics as Liam's treatment takes a turn for the worse. The police launch a search for Ronnie and Carrie, with Frank and Anderson setting out to track Ronnie's boat using GPS. Meanwhile, Morton visits Henry, questioning him about Billy Pettigrew's death. Henry denies knowing anything, but Morton reveals that the police recorded his previous phone call. Back in town, Patricia refuses Hildur's offer to stay at her place and declares she's leaving Fortitude soon. Meanwhile, Eric finds Frank's bloodstained shirt hidden in the bathroom trash. Anderson and Frank reach Ronnie's abandoned boat, but only find Carrie's rabbit inside. Meanwhile, Ronnie takes Carrie to a remote shack near a pack of huskies, promising they will soon escape together. Jason Donnelly visits Natalie, who confirms the mammoth tooth he brought her is over 32,000 years old. She urges him to turn it over to the research center, but Jason lies about its origin. Later that night, Ronnie sneaks into a warehouse and saws off the mammoth's tusks, believing they will make him rich. At the hotel, Morton shaves in his bathroom, while elsewhere, Anderson storms into Elena's room and violently attacks Frank in the shower. Elena screams for him to stop as Petra and Morton look on, tensions reaching their breaking point. On the glacier, Ronnie assures Carrie that the eerie noises she hears are just the ice shifting. Carrie comments that it sounds just like him, relentless. Meanwhile, Shirley enters the warehouse where the mammoth is stored, glances at it, and walks away, coughing. Henry returns home to find Sheriff Anderson waiting. Anderson admits he attacked Frank out of jealousy over Elena. Shirley visits Elena, pressing her about Frank's arrest, but Elena has no answers. At the police station, Dr. Margaret treats Frank's injuries and scolds Anderson for his brutality. Meanwhile, Morton tells Governor Hildur that Anderson's assault disqualifies him from handling the case. Morton asks to take over the investigation, and Hildur agrees. Patricia arrives at the station wanting answers about her husband's murder. Hildur watches closely as Eric comforts her. Meanwhile, Anderson retrieves DNA samples from Stoddart's body, but Hildur intercepts him, warning that his actions could ruin the case if Frank turns out to be guilty. During dinner, Shirley, Marcus, and Margaret eat whale meat. Shirley asks Marcus not to tell her mother, while Marcus notes that Shirley's honesty earns people's trust. As Natalie prepares the DNA test, Petra notices jars containing deformed reindeer fetuses. Natalie explains that they are hermaphrodites and that her research aims to find the cause. At the station, Morton interrogates Frank while Hildur listens. Frank claims the blood on his shirt was from a rupture in Liam's throat. Morton questions how such an injury could stop bleeding on its own, and reveals that Frank was discharged from the military for a medical condition which he had kept secret. Morton warns that they are testing the blood. Hildur tells Eric they need to question Jules, but Eric refuses, saying she won't leave Liam's side. Later, Jules admits Frank never mentioned the blood, and reveals that Liam got frostbite after Frank left him alone. Morton confronts Frank, who admits he was with Elena that night, while Anderson, Ingrid, Eric, and Jules watch. On the glacier, Carrie wakes Ronnie, frightened by a scratching sound outside. Ronnie assures her it's just a reindeer and that there are no bears nearby. Back in town, Jules tells Anderson she had Liam when she was 17 and that her mother disapproved of Frank. She insists Frank is a good man. Elena arrives and Anderson says she needs to answer some questions. Jules comments on Elena's beauty before leaving. Elena tells Morton and Hildur she went to see Frank to break up with him, but ended up sleeping with him instead. Morton asks if she's involved with Anderson, and she denies it. When questioned about Anderson's violent outburst, she claims not to know the reason. Outside, Morton asks Eric if Anderson and Elena have a deeper connection. Eric refuses to answer, so Morton demands Elena's police file. Later, Morton confronts Elena about her past, revealing that her real name is Esmeralda and that she was convicted of murder. He accuses her of killing Stoddart with Frank, but she strongly denies it. He also mentions Billy Pettigrew, noting her reaction whenever his name comes up. At the research center, Natalie, Vincent, and Petra complete the DNA test. The blood on Frank's shirt belongs to Stoddart. Hildur suggests Elena might be involved, but Anderson immediately shuts down the idea, revealing his feelings for her. Morton realizes Anderson is in love with Elena. Furious, Anderson storms into Frank's cell, telling him that the others now suspect Elena. Frank insists he only washed blood off Liam, thinking he was badly hurt, and denies killing Stoddart. At the Sutter home, Anderson and Jules return to check on Liam. Later, Anderson searches Liam's room and finds blood-stained pajamas stuffed behind the bed. He brings them to Hildur and Morton, proving that Frank was telling the truth. Liam was present when Stoddart was murdered. Frank then tells Anderson that Liam's bedroom window had been open that night, leading Anderson to a chilling realization: someone had taken Liam. On the glacier, Ronnie removes his glove and stares at his bloody hand. Nearby, the snow is stained with blood. Liam wakes up and sneaks out of his room, walking barefoot through the snow. Meanwhile, Frank and Elena are in a nearby garage. Jules heads to the bar, but is stopped by Henry, who warns her about frostbite and offers his hat, which she refuses. At Stoddart's house, he prepares dinner for Vincent and Natalie when his dog, Lau, growls at something outside. Moments later, Liam appears. Stoddart lets him in, but when he tries to warm him up, Liam suddenly attacks him with a cutting board. Later, Frank encounters a man named Marcus, who introduces himself as Liam's teacher and praises the boy. When Frank gets home, he finds Liam in his room, covered in blood. He cleans him up and is relieved when Liam finally speaks after being silent for days. Morton, Anderson, and Petra examine Stoddart's body and find a child's fingernail lodged in one of his ribs. They consult Dr. Allardyce about waking Liam to question him. She warns that it will cause severe pain, but eventually agrees. Jules hesitates but gives permission. When Liam wakes up, he remembers seeing Lau and Stoddart preparing food, but then suddenly screams in agony, forcing them to put him back to sleep. Meanwhile, Ronnie asks Carrie for help with the snowmobile, but she refuses after he yells at her. Eric informs Patricia that Liam killed her husband, but she refuses to believe it. Henry is shocked when he hears about the murder. Anderson apologizes to Frank for his past treatment and tells him about the evidence linking Liam to the crime. Frank struggles to accept it. Henry gives Jules his coat and offers help, but she simply says she needs a drink. Morton discusses the case with Detective Littlejohn, wondering what could drive a child to commit such a brutal act. They also examine Pettigrew's scans and notice the name Max written on the folder. Elsewhere, Shirley is bedridden and unable to eat, despite Marcus making her soup. Morton tracks down Max Cordero at the research center and asks about Pettigrew's scans. Max reveals that Yuri Lubomov took them and admits he fears Yuri. At the same time, Henry visits Tavrani, asking him to create a protective charm for Liam. Tavrani warns that it must be baptized in a murderer's blood to be effective. At the bar, Morton and Anderson share a drink. Meanwhile, Elena visits Liam, blaming herself for everything that happened. Ronnie sneaks into the warehouse to steal the mammoth tusks. As the frozen mammoth begins to thaw, Jason realizes what Ronnie has done and storms out in disgust. Later, in his hotel room, Morton examines the floorboards and carpets, realizing they were changed to cover up Pettigrew's blood. During Fortitude's Christmas party at the bar, Elena serves drinks while Billy shows Yuri some scans he believes are valuable. When Eric tells them to leave, Billy insults his wife, sparking a fight. Yuri tries to break it up, but slips. When he gets up, both men are gone, and the snow is stained with blood. Elsewhere, Morton leaves the hotel, while Governor Hildur informs her husband that the ice drill will be installed soon. She is relieved that Stoddart's murder seems to be solved. Anderson asks Elena about Morton, and she reveals he spent the night tearing up his hotel carpet. When Anderson insists that Morton has no proof, Elena tells him to stop trying to protect her. At Tavrani's shop, Henry donates his blood for the protective charm, which must stay near Liam when he sleeps. Tavrani warns that if the magic is too strong, it could backfire. Patricia visits her husband's body and later confesses to Hildur about her affair with Eric. She reveals that Charlie knew about it and that Eric refused to leave her. Meanwhile, Marcus returns home to find Shirley still sick. She complains of a sore throat, and he shows her a feeding tube, assuring her it will help her eat. Ronnie and Carrie stop for food, but Carrie refuses to eat leftovers. He tells her they're meeting a boat, but suddenly has a violent coughing fit. Hildur asks Dr. Allardyce to move Liam to the mainland, but she refuses, insisting Liam isn't stable. Hildur also wants to report Anderson for misconduct, but Allardyce leaves angrily. Ingrid gets a call from Carrie, who begs to come home. Before she can say more, Ronnie snatches the phone away. Ingrid reassures Ronnie that they don't believe he killed Stoddart, but Ronnie is afraid of losing Carrie. Meanwhile, Henry develops a photo showing Pettigrew handcuffed when the polar bear attacked him. At that moment, Yuri makes coffee only to turn and find Morton waiting in his home. When Yuri lunges at him, Morton pulls a gun. Yuri, now trapped, insists he knows who killed Pettigrew. At the bar, Henry stares at the photo, but quickly hides it when Anderson storms in, demanding to know where Morton is. Henry breaks down as Anderson accuses him of revealing secrets about Elena to Morton. Yuri gives Morton a rifle slug he found at the scene of Pettigrew's death, claiming the police are covering for Eric. He urges Morton to investigate what Pettigrew discovered beneath the ice. Meanwhile, Ronnie and Carrie arrive at the docks expecting a boat. Instead, the man they hired pulls a gun and steals the mammoth tusks. As he sails away, Carrie tells Ronnie she wants to go home. At the Christmas party, Ingrid warns Petra to slow down on drinks. Frank brings Liam his repaired helicopter, and a nurse mentions Elena's visit. Ingrid talks to Vincent, feeling sorry for him after his recent arrest. Anderson gives a speech about the town's future, but outside, Hildur confronts Eric about his affair. He complains that she's always too busy, and she coldly tells him she's leaving in the morning. Frank suddenly bursts into the party, demanding to know why Elena visited Liam. He lunges at her, but Anderson stops him. Frank then punches Anderson, who tells him to go home. After the party, Elena warns Anderson that Morton won't stop digging until he proves Anderson's involvement in Pettigrew's death. Back at Shirley's house, something disturbing happens. She wakes up, walks to her mother's room, and attacks her, cutting her open with a fork. As her mother lies in shock, Shirley vomits a strange black fluid into the wound. Shirley steps into the snow, leaving bloody footprints behind her. Inside her home, blood stains the walls. Governor Hildur, on the mainland for a meeting, receives a call from Sheriff Anderson informing her that Dr. Allardyce was attacked and Shirley is missing. Hildur promises to return that night and warns Anderson to stay in control. Meanwhile, Petra, overwhelmed with anxiety, is comforted by Ingrid. Carrie persuades her father to return to Fortitude, but he collapses on the way. At the hotel, Detective Morton talks to Henry, who denies the police are covering up Billy's murder. He becomes sarcastic when Morton presses him. Ingrid then bursts in to report Allardyce's attack, and Hildur quickly calls for assistance to return to Fortitude. Sheriff Anderson and Morton question Marcus about his whereabouts the previous night. Marcus claims he was home all night, feeding his dog and going to bed, but they remain suspicious. At the grocery store, Ingrid and Petra find Shirley lying in a pool of blood, and Petra panics. Carrie is nearby. Ronnie wakes up to find Carrie missing and starts searching for her. Anderson tells Morton and Eric that Carrie followed the police to the store, and they need to question Marcus again. Marcus insists he loved Shirley, but refuses to answer more questions without a lawyer. Morton accuses him of killing Shirley, but Marcus laughs it off, saying they're just trying to provoke him. Meanwhile, Tavrani works on the Tupolak for the Sutters, and Henry reflects on his past wish to become a pilot. Ronnie finds a video of his wife on the projector at home, thinking it's Carrie, but then someone hits him in the head. The people of Fortitude gather, and Frank demands answers. Anderson reassures them that Shirley's death was natural, but the crowd grows restless. A gunshot rings out, escalating the tension. Hildur calls for a moment of silence for Allardyce and urges the group to work together. Elena and Carrie head to Carrie's house, where they find the projector running. The power goes out and they're left in the dark, frightened. Later, Morton tells Anderson that he still suspects him of being involved in Billy's murder. Anderson assures him that he'll answer all questions. He then visits Elena and Carrie, checking on them. Carrie screams when she thinks she saw her father, but Anderson reassures her it was just a dream. Meanwhile, Marcus, tied up in his house, sees a man wearing a motorcycle helmet and holding a bat. He attacks the man with a knife, but Frank stops him, threatening to teach him a lesson. Ronnie screams in pain as he is brutally attacked, bleeding heavily. Meanwhile, a medic tells Jules that Liam is being woken up. She asks if she can take him home, but the decision is up to Governor Hildur. Sheriff Anderson tells Hildur that the attacks on Professor Stoddart and Dr. Allardyce appear to be connected, but Hildur insists they keep details about Allardyce's attack secret to prevent panic. Frank leaves Marcus tied up, warning him he'll return in 2 hours. Detective Morton examines a bullet found near Billy Pettigrew's death scene. Meanwhile, Vincent and Natalie study a reindeer fetus and discuss its strange condition. Vincent believes environmental factors caused it, while Natalie mentions the Sammy's belief in a demon. Ingrid hands Vincent a letter from Stoddart inviting him and Natalie to swim. Liam wakes up to see his mother by his side. The medic checks his condition, saying he's doing well but may be disoriented. At Kieran Donnelly's store, Morton asks about rifle ammunition, but Kieran refuses, saying he doesn't trust the police. Hildur and Anderson inform Frank and his family that Liam won't be prosecuted, but his family needs to be assessed to understand why he killed Stoddart. At home, Frank finds the word monster painted on the wall. At the research center, Vincent and Natalie analyze the brain of a polar bear that killed another bear. They find a toxin buildup, which might explain the animal's aggression. They suggest that toxins may have caused Shirley's aggression too. If that's the case, Fortitude could be dangerous. Carrie asks Elena why Shirley attacked Allardyce, but Elena doesn't have an answer. Carrie admits she saw Shirley's body and was terrified. Henry brings the Tupolak to the Sutters, warning Jules to leave Fortitude for her safety. Meanwhile, Hildur meets with Detective Morton, casually mentioning visiting Fortitude's ice hotel. During their conversation, she gets a call. Vincent and Natalie inform Hildur and Anderson about the toxins in the polar bear's brain and request permission to examine Shirley's brain to see if toxins caused her actions. If so, they could confirm that Fortitude is a dangerous place. Frank returns to Marcus, demanding answers about framing Liam. Marcus denies everything, but Frank isn't convinced and leaves him gagged. At the station, Morton examines more evidence from Billy Pettigrew's death scene. Anderson walks in, and Morton questions him about the rifle used to kill Pettigrew. Eric confronts Hildur about their broken relationship, but she tells him he's no longer the man she loved. He leaves, and she breaks down. At the lab, Vincent and Natalie confirm that Shirley had the same toxins as the polar bear. They want to test Liam for the same toxins. Meanwhile, Frank pressures Marcus again, but Marcus insists he's innocent. Jules unties Marcus, and Frank is convinced to stop questioning him. Marcus breaks down, and Jules persuades Frank to leave with her. Sheriff Anderson visits the Morgan house, showing Elena Ronnie's glove. He tells her they've lost hope of finding Ronnie alive, but plans to inform Carrie. However, unbeknownst to them, Ronnie is hiding in the house, severely injured but still alive. Henry, listening to music on the glacier, is unaware that Bernard is trying to reach Detective Morton, who is out looking for him. At the hotel, Carrie tells Elena that the phone is ringing, but Bernard's messages to Morton remain unanswered. Meanwhile, Marcus is tending to an injury when he receives a warning from Jules about Frank's actions. Frank checks on Marcus, but Marcus warns of consequences. Morton, stranded in the snow, leaves more messages for help. At the Sutter house, the family flees after noticing a police car outside. Governor Hildur informs the Sutters that Liam should be tested for toxins, which could explain his violent behavior. At the research center, Marcus questions why Shirley's body was moved. Natalie explains the need for testing, but Marcus insists Shirley wasn't violent. Meanwhile, Carrie confronts Elena about the police suspecting Ronnie's death, though Elena is unaware that Ronnie is still alive and hiding injured. Later, Vincent and Natalie test Liam for toxins, but find none. Natalie wonders if the infection spread from Liam to Shirley, and suggests testing blood. Celia finds blood in the bathroom, but can't get an answer from Jason. At the bar, Vincent agrees to help Natalie test the blood, though he's reluctant to get involved in solving murders. Meanwhile, Hildur and Anderson decide to quarantine the town, claiming it's a rabies outbreak to prevent panic. At the Sutter house, Hildur informs Jules that Liam's tests show no toxins, and Jules worries that Liam may have killed Stoddard on his own. Jason arrives staring at Liam through the window. Meanwhile, Henry confronts Morton on the glacier, accusing him of being involved in Billy Pettigrew's death. After shooting Morton, Henry offers him morphine, but Morton refuses. Jules, feeling desperate, drives Liam to the airport, ignoring Ingrid's warning. Ingrid threatens to shoot, but Jules dares her to. Liam screams but falls silent soon after. Morton, unable to move, drags himself to Henry's snowmobile, only to find it out of gas. Henry refuses to help and suggests Morton tell Anderson the truth about Billy's death. Morton eventually contacts Anderson, revealing Henry shot him and has proof Anderson was involved. Anderson is shocked by this news. Marcus sets Shirley's body on a funeral boat and sets it ablaze on the water. Frank returns home to find his family gone, while Henry shoots himself in the head, ending his life. Dan races to the glacier after receiving a distress call from Henry. He finds Eugene badly injured and near death. Eugene demands to know the truth about Billy's death. Through fragmented flashbacks, Dan reveals that Billy had assaulted Elena, sending him into a rage. In a fit of fury, Dan handcuffed Billy to a beach pylon, leaving him exposed to a polar bear. Henry shot Billy to end his suffering. Eugene dies, leaving Dan to face the consequences. Meanwhile, Jason, unhinged and infected, attacks Natalie in the lab. She manages to escape but is left shaken. Dan, questioning Natalie about the attack, learns that Jason is under the influence of the infection, making him reckless and dangerous. The police issue a search warrant and the townspeople are warned about Jason's instability. Vincent and Natalie conduct a post-mortem on Stoddard's dog, revealing larvae in its system, confirming that the infection is spreading. They find the same issue when examining Margaret's body, which erupts in a swarm of parasitic wasps. Vincent is attacked by the swarm, and Natalie is helpless as she watches in horror. Trapped in the glass lab chamber with the wasps, Vincent plans to flood the room with gas and ignite it, killing the parasites. Dan and Natalie reluctantly agree to the plan. The explosion rocks the research center, throwing Dan to the ground and leaving Vincent badly burned but alive. Natalie confirms that Vincent is unlikely to have been infected by the larvae, offering a glimmer of hope. The Sutters remain fractured, with Jules telling Liam that Frank will now be like a visitor. Frank, haunted by his failures, watches as his family drifts away. Natalie reveals to Governor Hildur that the wasps are an ancient species, parasitic insects that consume their host from within. The thawing of the glacier has awakened these creatures, infecting people and driving them to violence. Elsewhere, Yuri and Max steal an ice drill to excavate the glacier for treasure. After a confrontation with Officer Eric Odegaard, Yuri falls into a cavern, discovering thawing mammoth carcasses and more wasps, hinting at a more ancient threat. Elena starts showing symptoms of the infection, unable to control the urge to spread the larvae. Hildur confronts Jason, demanding he reveal where he found the mammoth. Jason reluctantly tells her it was in the supermarket, and Hilder acts quickly, organizing a plan to burn the mammoth and stop the infection. Frank and Dan work together to destroy the mammoth, saving the town from the outbreak. Meanwhile, Marcus, still recovering from Frank's attack, reflects on the moral chaos surrounding Fortitude. He believes people must face the consequences of their actions. Jason, witnessing the destruction of the mammoth, takes his own life. Back in Fortitude, Eric and Hilder reconcile after Eric returns with the ice drill. However, Elena, overwhelmed by the infection, attacks Carrie, trying to pass on the larvae. Dan arrives just in time to shoot Elena in the chest, saving Carrie, but it's too late as Elena has already stabbed the girl. Dan, heartbroken, takes Carrie to safety, but it's clear that the town has been ravaged by the infection. Elena survives but remains unconscious in a hospital bed, and the film ends with a haunting shot of Fortitude, now a town devastated by loss, betrayal, and the infection. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.